there. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Board of Education to order for this evening. And we are in unusual times. If I might, let me read our guidelines. Due to the guidelines from Center Disease Control and Prevention, all board members will be participating tonight through video conferencing, and the meeting will be live streamed on the district's YouTube channel. A direct link will be posted on the district's digital platforms. Community and staff members are encouraged to view the meeting from their homes. However, if members of the public are unable to access the meeting on their own, a live stream will be provided in the boardroom located at Doolin Building. Additionally, recorded video will be available on the district website to watch this at any time during the meeting. Generally, in our meetings, we have an opportunity for public comment. We are unable to do that directly this evening with this format, but I do encourage any persons in the public or on staff to use our Let's Talk feature if you have any concerns or questions, and we will address those as soon as possible. So thank you for joining us. At this point, then, I would like to call the meeting officially to order, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now we'll get back to our meeting and begin with our roll call. Madam Secretary, please.
Ms. Youngers?
Here.
Ms. Wardick?
Here.
Ms. Reinhardt?
Here.
Mr. Stone? Mr. Stone? Mr. Harrell?
Here. I'm here.
Dr.
I was
Ward?
on mute. I'm sorry. Here.
Ms. Couch?
Here. The second item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda, and I entertain a motion.
So moved to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. Good.
Been a motion from Dixie Younger, second from Mr. Stone. Roll call, please.
Ms. Youngers?
Yes.
Ms. Wardick?
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Harrell?
Yes.
Dr. Ward?
Yes.
Ms. Couch?
Yes. We'll move on to the consent agenda. There was a slight revision this afternoon. One item was removed and put on to consent agenda items for separate consideration, and that was the minutes of the Board of Education meeting for February 25th, as several of us were not there at that meeting. I would entertain, though, a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
I will second that.
By Ms. Youngers and seconded by Mr. Harrell. This point, I have lost you. There you go. There we go. Back in order. We have a treasurer's report.
Oh. The report of history is probably far less important than the report about the future. Unfortunately, the future is unknown at this point. We have very fluffy guidance from the state. We have uncertainty. The revenue picture at the state is obviously uncertain as they go through the rest of their fiscal year. At this point, we're fine. Looking down the road, it's mostly nothing but question marks. We're waiting to see where things emerge and evolve. All is good at the point of departure.
Okay, were there any questions on that report or those things in your packet? All right, and any other items on the consent agenda that had questions? All right, then if not, then we've had a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda as presented. Would you like to do roll call, Peggy?
Sure.
Would that be all right to do that? It'd be
Sure.
easier. Thank you.
Ms. Youngers,
Yes.
Ms. Wardick,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Harrell,
Yes.
Dr. Ward,
Yes.
Ms. Calc.
Yes, thank you. And now the item on the consent agenda for separate consideration on February 25th, the minutes. And both Dr. Ward and myself were absent for that meeting. So do I hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, motion by Terry Stone and second by Dixie Youngers. All those in favor of the approval of the minutes as presented for the 25th, say aye.
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 And opposed? And abstentions? Myself
And myself.
and Mr. Ward. All right, items for new business. The first item on new business is probationary teachers contract renewal.
Yes, Madam President. I think we have a couple of items here about hiring teachers for next year. Just as a quick reminder, we offer contracts at this point, but officially we'll go through salary negotiations before we would actually move them on the salary schedule or do any of those pieces. But we have Dr. Gaddy here, and she's ready to share with you the process of getting these folks hired.
Good evening. Before I move on to those two items for the new business, I would like to note that on the personnel agenda, we had salary notifications listed for summer school. And I just wanted to note that if we don't have summer school or if those classes don't make, those salary notifications will be void. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of that as we move forward. So thank you for approving those so that we can plan for business as usual. Moving on to our new business, the Board of Education has a statutory obligation to notify our probationary certificated staff of our intent to employ for the next school year by April 15th. We've worked through all of our processes to meet this requirement. And so tonight we'll bring to you two motions. The first one will be presenting the list of probationary teachers that we would like to renew for the 2020-2021 school year.
Okay,
And on that, we would need a vote for that one.
okay.
And we approve the list as presented.
Dr. Wardick? Is there a
Second.
I'm
Second.
sorry, who was that?
Dr. Ward.
Dr. Ward, thank you. Okay, it's been moved and seconded for approval of the probationary teachers contract renewal for the 2021 year. Any other questions or things that you would like to have Dr. Gaddy address? All right, then with that motion and second, let's have a roll call, please.
Ms. Youngers? Can you hear me? Ms.
I
Wardick?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes.
Okay, Ms. Wardick,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Harrell,
Yes.
Dr. Ward,
Yes.
Ms. Calc.
Yes. All right, and then our next item is teachers reaching tenure contract renewal for 2021. Dr. Getty, is there anything else that you'd like to add on that?
No, ma'am. We would just ask that you approve those teachers moving to tenure.
Okay, all right, very good.
I move we approve the list as presented.
Okay. Ms. Wartick?
Second.
Motion, and Ms. Younger, second. Any other discussion?
What percentage of teachers were approved for tenure that were eligible, led?
I believe all the teachers that were eligible for tenure made tenure this year.
Thank you.
You know, if I could, Mr. Stone, that piece is, if they should have been counseled into the right position before year 5, moving into year 6. So typically at year 5, our approval rating for tenure is very high. Typically those conversations happen year 1, year 2, year 3.
So what percentage of year 1, 2, 3 did we counsel people to find a better opportunity?
We usually have somewhere between 20 and 30 a year, but we can get you those exact details.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Is that numbers or percentage?
Numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Clemens.
Okay, any other questions? Then we have a motion and a second. May we have roll call? Madam Secretary, please.
Ms. Youngers? Ms. Youngers?
Yes.
Ms. Wardick?
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Harrell?
Yes.
Dr. Ward?
Yes.
Ms. Calc?
Yes. Thank you very much. Our next item for business is the nomination of Dr. Ward for Missouri School Board Association Board of Directors. And this is an opportunity afforded to our region every other year that a nomination can be presented from individual school boards to the state board for consideration for the board. We have a nomination by local school district that is requested. It's been wavered this year, but it has still been requested, and I thought it would be an opportunity for us to potentially affirm Dr. Ward through our vote and acclamation this evening. Do you have any comments, Dr. Ward, first of all, about your interest in this position?
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, I am interested in this position. I obviously have been engaged with the board and with MSBA for an extended period of time. And several people around the state have encouraged me to get onto the board, particularly because they feel that someone who represents larger school districts should have a voice, and that as we become the second or largest school district in the state, they would like to have that type of large school district voice represented on the board for their considerations. I am at a point where I am no longer working for pay. Some call that retired, some won't call what I'm doing retired, but indeed that's where I am. I have the time to do it now. As I understand the process going forward, there are at least 2 other people from Region 4 who were considering putting their name up for consideration. I don't know whether that has occurred or not. There was supposed to be a vote at the Region 4 meeting, which is, I think, tomorrow nominally, but will not be happening. I checked with MSBA to see what the practice was going to be at this point, and they said that that would yet be evolving. So there's probably some kind of a election process that will probably occur amongst the districts in Region 4. I have no idea what the process is. I have no idea what the advocacy is. I would greatly appreciate the endorsement of my colleagues from the board because it certainly, even though it isn't required, it would certainly be a plus in seeking this position. It is for a 50% override on the pay structure for any regular board member. So it would be that, to my knowledge, there is no liability to the board for me doing this.
And you remain a only standing board members are eligible for this position. And
That
you
is
have-
correct. Standing board members with at least 2 years of service.
So in thinking through this, I feel like Dr. Ward is very qualified. You've been an expert witness and testified at a number of situations with the legislators, been a speaker at many of the MSBA workshops, and your tenure and leadership on our board has also been a real plus to our district. And so I would feel like you are highly qualified to represent large districts in our district in that capacity. Do I have any other comments from other board members regarding this nomination?
I'll just make a few comments. First of all, thank you, Dr. Ward, for your interest. I certainly don't know of anybody else who's more qualified to represent the North Kansas City School Board on the Missouri School Board Association Board of Directors. More than anything else, I think, again, you could take our issues, push them forward at the state level, but also at the same time represent all of the school districts around the state of Missouri to push education forward, not only in our state, but also to take our issues and make sure that they're meet the needs of the national platform also. Probably my one question for you that just, if you'd want to just address in the public meeting, is the length of the term. Would it be for a 1 year, or is it is the MSBA board position a 1 year term, or is it 2 or 3 year terms? I'm just curious.
To my understanding, it's a 2-year term.
Yeah.
They elect people to this every 2 years. So
Gotcha.
I would think that would be the term.
Fantastic. Well, I certainly think you would be a wonderful representative on the MSBA board.
Thank you.
I would entertain other comments or a motion.
Motion to nominate Dr. Ward for Missouri School Board Association Board of Directors.
And I will second.
Second. Paul
Okay.
seconds.
Been moved by Dixie and seconded by Paul Harrell for the nomination. Again, could we do roll call, please?
Ms. Youngers,
Yes.
Ms. Wardick,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Harrell,
Yes.
Dr. Ward,
Abstain.
Ms. Calc.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Good luck to you, Dr. Ward. All right.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. We're on to the board superintendent reports, and we've asked Dr. Clemens and members of his cabinet to provide a COVID-19 update. Dr. Clemens.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. It's hard to believe that a big portion of this just started March 11th. And so tomorrow it'll be 2 weeks. And, you know, on March 11th, we were preparing for spring break, and we started to have a lot of conversations with our staff, and particularly here at Central Office, about what would happen if we weren't able to come back to spring break. And so some folks worked on our online Canvas and Seesaw and other pieces to ensure that we would be ready if we weren't able to come back. Quite honestly, North Kansas City took a lot of heat for doing that work from other school districts around. They thought that we were prematurely taking a look at something we shouldn't. But on March 11th, we also sent iPads home with our kindergarten, first and second grade students. That's something typically we don't do. Those stay at the school. On March 13th, we sent families home on spring break, hoping to see them upon the return of spring break. On March 16th, we received word that we would be closed till April 6th. So then we all got back together and started planning for how we would be able to pull off feeding our students, employing our employees, and doing online services for our students in terms of academics. On March 21st, Mayor Lucas issued the state of a stay-at-home order, which extended us out till the 27th of April. And on March 23rd, which was yesterday, we had our first opportunity to deliver food to the students in which we serve in North Kansas City schools. It's hard to believe that that's just a 2-week period of time. It feels like it's been months. and I want to start off by saying thank you to the Board of Education, but a huge thank you to this community, starting with our cabinet members who pretty much gave up spring break to ensure that our students wouldn't do without, down to our teachers that if you watched online, you could see how many of them were working over spring break to make sure that they were ready for online learning with our kids, and to our parents that have supported us all the way through this entire community. We just couldn't have asked for better support as we've moved forward with our plan to support our kids. So we have a lot of different chunks. I got some questions from some of you. So we're going to go through different chunks, and you'll hear from different folks in terms of the plan and how we're implementing the plan and what we're foreseeing in the future, which can change just almost on a daily basis. So one of the first questions that we received is really a summary of the first day of e-learning and how did food pickup go and some of those notions. I'd kind of like to start by showing you some of the short clips of videos that our teachers had put together to ensure our kids knew that first and foremost, we care about them as kids, and we'll make sure they're doing okay. So Peggy, do you have the ability to turn that one on for us?
Hi everyone! Hi everyone! This is Mrs. Barrows and baby Ashlyn. Hi, this is Miss Hubby. Hi AP Lit, it's so good to be seeing you. Hola mis halconcitos.
This is my teaching assistant, Theodore.
Hey Oak Park, it's Dr. Dameron here.
Hi everyone! Tucker, can you say hi? Happy Monday, March 23rd of 2020.
Hi boys and girls, welcome to e-learning. So let's get started today. Let's
I just wanted to welcome you to e-learning.
I am so excited to give you a little orientation video about how to do online learning.
Welcome to our classroom. Come on in.
Max and I are so excited to welcome you to your very first day of e-learning.
You get to sit around in comfy clothes. What's better than that?
Okay, got my workstation set up.
We are going to be doing online learning until April the 24th.
It's a lot different than what we're used to. I'm hoping that this will be a fun adventure for all of us and that we will learn lots of awesome things along the way.
As you can see, there's Harper. She's watching.
15 times 10.
Make you feel a little nervous or anxious, and that's okay.
It's helpful, like Jabari, to have some people by your side.
To go with the flow and figure things out together.
We don't get better unless we get out of our comfort zones. We are definitely out of our comfort zone.
Hey, classes start back up on Monday.
And we are going to learn a lot together, even though we're not at school.
And I am looking forward to seeing your smiling faces.
So we have a great opportunity, and all of us are going to be part of this.
But I miss you guys.
I want you to know I care about you. I miss you.
We're all in this. We got this.
I can't wait to see all your posts and videos.
If you have any questions during the day, feel free to shoot me a quick email. Please tell me hi because I miss you guys.
So I love you guys. Take care of yourself. Stay safe. Listen to your mom and dad.
And together, we got this.
All right, we're back. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Well, we've been trying this online piece for a long time, and there's nothing like pulling the rug out from everybody and jumping right in and making it happen. I think there's been more evolution in online education in the last few days than what we've seen in multiple years. And I couldn't be more proud of our staff. Just doing a phenomenal job. I'm concerned about their fatigue. I'm concerned about their well-being. And so we'll be monitoring and coming back to this Board of Education to talk about ways to ensure that we get off on this great start, that we can maintain some of the things we're doing for kids. But it's just been absolutely amazing. You know, food service preparation and delivery was something that we talked about immediately when we knew we were going to have to close. There's so many of our kids within our community that rely on us for healthy food. And so Dr. Evans and his team, including Jenna and Mike McQuillan up in transportation, have put together a pretty good plan. We're doing preparation at Newmark, Fox Hill, Eastgate, Northgate, Antioch, and Meadowbrook. And then we're also doing some deliveries between 1 and 3. And I'm sorry, we're actually having drive-throughs where people can pick up food from 1 to 3 at our high schools. And so we're feeding a lot of kids. We're actually up north today. We fed more kids than what we even anticipated. So still working some of the kinks out and some of that. And so we think we'll be online tomorrow and be able to better serve some of our community. It's always good when you need to produce more food to serve more people. And so that was a little bit of a surprise for us, but we're happy to do that. And it also, I think, shows a little bit that people are following Mayor Lucas's shelter-in-place order. If they are staying home and depending on us for food, that's probably going to help our community remain healthy. We'll see. I think the number that I have here is 6,511 lunches. Dr. Evans, is that right?
That is correct. That was from day one. I just came back from over there a little bit ago, and they were calculating the late numbers coming in from the high schools and the drive-throughs. So we'll know, like you said, from day 2. But that's what we did day 1. We anticipate day 2 being higher, especially with the close down. Tomorrow we're going to ramp up production significantly with better weather and our anticipation of having more folks out there needing food.
You know, I think this is critically important, and I've been working with Chad quite a bit and talking about the logistics part of it and being on time and making sure that every kid gets what they deserve from us. And big thank you to our food service employees, our transportation department, and also for Chad for letting me get after him about where we're not quite right and where we have to continue to work to be right for all the kids in which we serve. Madam President, at this point, just on that first piece of what we've shared, we entertain any questions or comments, and then we'll join into the next question.
I had a question on the 1 to 3 locations. Is that like at the high schools, or where is that happening?
Yes, ma'am. That's at the 4 high school sites. The drive up, grab and go is from 1 to 3, and those have gone really well. I'll check the numbers again today, but early returns said we had great success at those locations.
Great. And I know they were doing this because my sister said she saw kids in our neighborhood that were just walking from the bus stop home yesterday. So they're getting them in my neighborhood. Second question, is there a way to tell like the students that are logging in, like how many, or tracking that or anything along those lines?
In terms of online work?
On the e-learning, I mean, how does that work? I mean, I know how it works, but in terms of actually tracking something so we can have some good data on that, do we have that?
Okay, Chad.
Anything that does?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
We can in Canvas, we can run a report. We were just talking about that today to see the percentage of students that are logging on. We haven't ran that report yet, but we can. Seesaw is what the application that we're using for K through 5. That one's a little bit trickier in terms of pulling the reports. And so a lot of our teachers are just kind of taking attendance to see what levels of engagement are from students. But early reports would suggest our levels of engagement are pretty strong right now with online learning. We've been really, really pleased so far.
Okay, I would think maybe at the next meeting or when we gather again, if we could, hear some of those statistics, I think it would be helpful for us.
Sure.
Thanks.
Dr. Evans, I know this is an unfair question, so I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you have a guess as to what the rate of growth is what you'll see when you get today's report, where you think tomorrow will be? And based on what you're seeing, do you have any kind of a guess as to where you think our meal delivery will level off?
We're hoping by the end of this week, we'll have some of our baseline. We have, it's like you said, we don't have any baseline to go from right now. So we hope by the end of the week, we'll have more of a, sorry about that. I was waving my hand in front talking, but today was just really high in the north area. And I think Dr. Clemens is right, as saying the stay at home, folks were staying at home and maybe not going to the restaurants as much as possible, or maybe out to the store, maybe out to QT. But once the numbers comes in tonight, we'll see where we're at. And we hope, talking to Jenna before I came over here with you guys, we feel by the end of the week, we'll know where we're leveling out at least. Our charge right now is to make sure we get closer to schedule. And so we have backups upon our backups now and some quick delivery teams in order to meet those needs for individual families. But I guess to answer your question, to be honest with you, Dr. Ward, I can't anticipate, and Jenna didn't want to guess either because we were off today. But by the end of the week, we feel like we'll have a pretty good handle on at least where our baseline is.
Okay, Dr. Clemens, Friday report, can we get an update?
I think that's wonderful. I was also going to mention to Jane is that we'll have that report on usage as well. Monday through Thursday, can we do that, Chad and Chad?
Yep, we got it.
Reports on Monday through Thursday? Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure how some of that technology stuff works.
So,
hitchhike on Dr. Ward's question.
I'm sorry, T.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah, to hitchhike on Dr. Ward's question, 6,500 meals, what percentage of that represents our numbers for free and reduced lunch? What percentage is that of the free and reduced lunch numbers for our district?
If I could, Mr. Stone, we were able to receive a waiver, so we don't even need to seek that information, so therefore we're not. We are just providing meals to any student that shows up at our bus stop because times have changed for folks. Some folks that were working are now not working due to the state of emergency.
I'm all for that, and I think it's a great thing that we're doing. My hat's off to the cabinet and staff who are working on that issue. I was just curious in terms of the biggest needs. We know what our number of free and reduced lunch students is. I was just curious what that represented, although what you're telling me is that some of the people getting the lunches may or may not be on that list, so the number would be off. So, okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
I might just chime in for just a second. First of all, I think it's wonderful that we are providing these meals for our students. Obviously, it's certainly appreciated by our community. I certainly feel that. I guess my question would be, are we fully utilizing all of our employees within the food and nutrition department and the transportation department, or are there some of those employees that are staying home with the stay-at-home order proclamation from the mayor?
Mr. Harold, that's actually our next section of this conversation. So as soon as we're done here, I think Jenny can share with you the statistics on who's working and who's at home.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just ask a little bit more direct question as to what is in a breakfast and a lunch packet that they're picking up?
Yeah, today there was some cheese. There was some. They were working off of prepackaged peanut butter and jelly. There is some. It's mostly prepackaged items. There's milk. There's juice. We're going to move on to chicken nuggets here. I know some of those were getting bagged this afternoon. So basically, what we can put out there is stuff that you can eat, or you can actually reheat if you want to eat it a little bit. If you want to, there's some rules and regulations on what you can send out on sack lunches clearly, but it's mostly I'll obviously prepackaged stuff, but you can reheat some of the things. But that's what we're hoping to do by the end of this week, to go back to Dr. Ward, is to start creating a menu and be able to send that out to our families. But we got to get this leveled out first, but then we'd be able to actually tell them, here's what's coming. And if we can get a day ahead, 2 days ahead, then we'll be able to do that. And right now we're just trying to meet the needs of who comes, but hopefully as this thing progresses a little bit, we'll be able to actually put out some sort of menu.
Great. And then our stores, our supplier still can you hear me?
Yes.
Our stores and suppliers are still available, and adequate numbers and amounts are going to be available through this.
As of right now, we have not had any pushback as far as our suppliers. What they have told us that if it continues to increase, which I think we probably will see that, because a lot of districts are trying to do similar things as we are, then they'll have to push their manufacturers to increase input, but they have not had any feedback as of yet that says they would not do that.
Right.
I saw a little guy, and he was pretty excited about the baked potato chips and the fruit bowl that he had in his bag. So he was ready to go.
I just wanted to add my comments to thank the staff for all the work that they're doing to feed our district families. I've been watching Facebook and Twitter, and the heartfelt comments on those social media accounts are tremendous. So a huge thank you to all the people that are working so hard to feed our district children.
Yes, thank you.
I would definitely agree with what Dixie said. And I know I was reading Kansas City, Missouri went around, they're doing theirs out of Paseo cafeteria, and they went around to their various schools to just get supplies that they had on hand to use that, before they had to order anything or get to that point.
All right. We're ready to move on to the next topic? Yeah. All right.
Let's see. I was muted there. Yes, I'd like to start off by saying Jenny Gaddy, Dr. Gaddy has done a tremendous job in the last couple of weeks working with every employee in this school district that has reached out to her with a concern or wanting a new assignment. I don't know when Jenny sleeps right now, but I just asked her to share some of the data with you regarding what she's doing to ensure that we are continuing to pay our employees that count on us so much. Jenny?
Hi, thank you. To answer your question, Mr. Harrell, we're working for our transportation and food nutrition services. Dr. Evans is being very creative, and we're doing some rotating schedules and some staggered shifts so that we're getting as many people into work as possible, but also maintaining social distancing and not overloading our work sites. Right now, we have reassigned 321 employees to food distribution. And out of those 321 employees, we have reassigned 39 have reached out to us for various needs to ask for reassignment. And we have been able to work with their supervisors to either supply work for them to do at home, or we've been able to maybe reassign them. For example, we had a person who had some back issues and they didn't feel that they could ride a bus every day, but they could then work at one of the high schools to deliver meals at the grab and go location there. So again, just having those conversations with each of our employees to see what their needs are and how we can meet their needs in different ways than maybe the original assignment we provided them. We have 45 employees right now that are utilizing their comp time. So once we've kind of gotten their comp balance down to zero, they will be reassigned to food distribution or other needs that we'll have at that time. And we've been having those conversations with those employees as well. Madam President, I'd be happy to answer any other questions you may have about our employees.
Okay. Other questions, please.
I would just add that I talked to Paul Guest yesterday. I'm trying to stay close with our teacher groups to make sure that we're able to address any teacher concerns that are popping up. Particularly, like I said, I'm a little worried about they're putting so much energy ahead right now that they don't wear themselves out, and we're taking care of them social emotionally. And so Paul's doing a nice job of bringing to our attention anything that that might be causing that. So I feel like that communication's been strong.
And Dr. Gaddy, thank you very much. I think really what I've taken from that is you've got more employees working on this assignment with the preparation and the delivery of the lunches that are normally assigned to the food service and transportation departments. So all hands are on deck at this point in time to try to address this effort. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm just also aware how quickly we've turned and been able to deploy our staff. And I appreciate their flexibility and willingness to ride through this and be transparent with their concerns with you and you be able to address that. I think that that is critical. And I know you've been very sensitive to that. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right. Dr. Clemens.
This next one, we'll get into a little bit more in the budget portion of what we're dealing with. But one of the things we wanted to mention, as Chad said, we're still reaching out and purchasing food from our vendors. We have shut down a lot of the other spending within our school district, and I think that it is the right time to do that. We had a lot of outstanding purchase orders for materials and equipment for this school year to address classroom needs. We also had a lot of professional development, travel, in service that was there. And at this point, we're closing most of that down and trying to figure out when we would be able to do some of that again. I think tentatively, Matt and I and Cabinet have talked about if we don't go back to school, we would probably slow everything down till July 1st to try to pull back some of our resources, because we anticipate Missouri's revenue to take a pretty good dip next year and needing to add some of that to our fund balance as we try to balance how we operate the school district. But Matthew's going to get into more of that in just a few seconds here. I believe that we're going through every single purchase order that we have on file to ensure that we're not spending something that should be reserved for next year. So with that, Matt, would you like to share how you're managing our budget?
Yes, thank you, Madam President, Dr. Clemens. So essentially, as Dr. Ward had mentioned earlier in the Treasurer's report, there is not a whole lot of new information from DESE or the state. So we're kind of in a little bit of a delay on what we're hearing from them. So what I do have is our current collections from Missouri that were included in the Treasurer's report. We're a little ahead of schedule, but again, as we've mentioned throughout this year, that's compared to last year, which is a little off based on the way that taxes were collected. So as far as state revenue is concerned, for the current year, we're on track. We don't anticipate any decrease in the state adequacy target. Both information from DESE and the state would say that we're holding strong at the 63.75. And then as DESE put out just recently this month for March's finance memo, they've continued to project into 2021 that we will maintain the fully funded formula at that 63.75. And so right now we don't have a huge or a large amount of information to go on as far as what the state budget might be like next year. But again, that's a smaller percentage of our overall revenue. What really is on the table this year as far and going into next year is kind of our tax revenue, which is the biggest piece. And this current year is a non-reassessment year. So what I would say is regarding our assessed valuation, because we're not in that reassessment year, it'll take another year before we see any impact due to a recession or anything like that would impact our assessed valuation. So that's kind of another year out, if you will. So at this current point in time, we don't have a whole lot of information to go off of as far as next year is concerned. However, like Dr. Clemens mentioned, we anticipate there to be some hit to the state revenue budget going forward. We just don't know to what degree at this point in time. We will continuously monitor that. I think one of the things that we can assume will go down is our Prop C revenue, which is based off the state sales tax. As you know, we're in shutdown mode. We don't have a whole lot of sales tax coming in, so that might hit us a little bit this year and into next year as well. Other than that, at this point in time, I don't think it's necessary to sound the alarm bells, but I think we do need to continuously monitor this as we progress through and see, when do we get back going. I know President today announced that he wanted everybody back at work by Easter. Well, again, that remains to be seen. I think we've got different time frames from the governor as far as April 6th to the mayor is April 24th. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty as to a time frame and running as a economic engine again. But again, we just have to continuously monitor it. And right now, my plan is to work with Chad and Jeff on what that bond delay looks like and how those funding sources, some of the things that we can get done to our buildings and our planning and our timelines, as well as looking at what kind of impact might happen to our Prop C and to our state revenue, and really kind of running it through that whole 5-year forecast process. We are also in the middle of our current budgeting process. So far, we haven't put any restrictions or any cuts into next year's budget, but we also haven't negotiated salaries. And so those are some of the things that we're going to continue to work on and monitor. And as I said, at this time, we don't have a whole lot of new information, but we'll work through it and keep you abreast of any changes that we are aware of. And with that, I'd turn it back to you, Madam President.
Sure. Let me just ask you a quick clarifying question. When you mentioned after reassessment, when that occurs, that's 22, 23 in the county? Is that the cycle that?
So right now, in every odd year, so in odd years, we have a reassessment year.
So 23, 24.
Now, so the next one will be 21, 22. So
21.
that's, because the reassessment happens in the leading up to June of next year, so 2021, June 2021, and then we'll base our new tax rate off of that reassessment that we'll finalize in July, and we'll do our new tax rate in August of next year. And we'll do it again. We'll do it this year as well, but there just won't be a reassessment impact.
I think, Jan, if I understand your question, we'll have reassessment next summer. We'll set a new tax rate based on that in August. The collections in December, if you will be in December of 21 and will be for the 21-22 school year. So our new target for revenue based on reassessment won't be for this school year, but will be for next school year. This school year meaning the one we're heading into this fall.
Right. So it's a cycle of 2 years.
It'll actually be the 21-22 school year
that
will be impacted by a reassessed property.
Yes.
That is sitting behind a huge question mark. This is a bigger question mark than the one Dr. Evans shied away from.
Yes.
Well, if anyone knows now, we'd be fortunate, but we don't know. So.
Right.
Right.
All right. Very good. I'm sorry. And then the rest of the board, do you have questions?
I might just chime in. This is just a perfect example of why the district really needs to keep a healthy but not wealthy fund balance. Basically, anywhere, I know our fund balances have been pushing the 20% level, but this is a perfect example of why we need that at this point in time. First of all, it keeps the district from entering into a panic mode. More than anything else, it allows us to buy time, allows us to work and develop plans so that we're not just in a knee-jerk reaction that we can't provide lunches, we can't provide this, we can't provide that because we don't have the funding for it. Well, we do have the funding for it in our fund balance, which again allows us to buy time to develop more comprehensive plans as we learn more information. So again, I just want to thank the Board of Education, the administration, Mr. Fritz, and everybody else who's involved with that process to continually keeping our district financially healthy. Again, I say healthy, not wealthy, but healthy so that we can weather these types of storms.
Others?
Madam President, there's one thing that I would probably add to Matt's conversation. I know he's watching this closely, but we've not heard anything from DESE around summer learning yet. There's some folks that think that DESE is not going to allow us to have summer learning. And I think our last year's ADA count on that was 869 kids. So there's a significant, that's ADA, that there's way more kids in that involved, but that's like adding 869 more kids to our total count for payment. And so we'll be watching that closely. That is a revenue generator for the school district and something that Matt and I will pay close attention to.
Which affects our near future. Other questions? All right. Any other topics?
Yeah, we got a whole bunch more. I think Mr. Book probably got excited because I accidentally skipped him. But one of the questions that we've received from board members is just around the legalities of what is currently going on in this uncertain time. And so I know that MSBA has released some things that Steve and I have taken a look at. We even know like things as simple as visitor comment, how we're going to probably have to figure out some way to do that if these board meetings continue this way. And then also I'll be on a conference call with Commissioner Van Dieven on her advisory tomorrow at 3 o'clock and are certainly geared up to ask some of the questions about how these things are going to impact not only policy procedure, but also the legal part of running school districts. So I've asked Steve just to touch base on some of the big things that are changing for us right now with the Board of Education.
Thank you, Dr. Clemens. Yeah, there are a few things that we've found this week that we're having to change up a little bit, or at least deal with this situation, and wanted to run a few by you. The first thing that we are doing, or one of the first big things that we are doing, is making changes with timekeeping. We have a system through Kronos where hourly employees will typically check in and check out when they're here for work, and we've directed people to stop doing that for a couple of reasons. It's a physical touch when you check in and check out, and so we want to avoid that. And also, our people aren't in our buildings, of course, so they physically can't do that. And so we've changed how we are tracking time for our hourly employees, and have really taken the burden off of them to do that, and put it back on us to make sure that that's one less thing that they're having to worry about. And under the circumstances, it's easier for us as the employer to track that. And so that's one big change that we've done that our employees have seen. Another thing, Congress, as you probably know or heard, enacted some legislation on the 18th, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. And with that, it gave people some emergency sick leave that might be available as a result of the virus. And so it provides for up to 80 hours of sick leave for employees who might be unable to work because of symptoms that they're experiencing directly, or because they are having to care for a son or a daughter who are no longer able to go to daycare, no longer able to go to school because of the coronavirus. And so those are things that we are, I'm working with Dr. Gaddy and her team and Matt to make sure that we are up to date on what all that means for our employees going forward, and make sure that we're compliant with the law and getting them what they need. It also expands FMLA, which is the Family Medical Leave Act, a little bit, so that they are would be entitled to some additional days if they're having to care for children. So, we think this will probably be a limited impact for us because we're committed to make sure that everybody is working and getting paid. But obviously, there are going to be some circumstances that arise that it's going to be important that our people are aware of that so that they can take advantage of it, and we are taking care of our employees. The last thing I wanted to point out was special education instruction. This is something that can be a little bit more challenging in e-learning because we have students who qualify for special education services. They receive those services through an IEP plan, an individualized education plan. Those plans are put together by a team knowledgeable about the student to make sure that they are receiving the services necessary to meet their goals that are set forth on the plan. The IEP teams have, we're making efforts to make sure that students are able to meaningfully access education through e-learning, but we know there are going to be some circumstances where that may not happen. And so if that does happen, our teams are prepared to make sure that those students, the teams will meet to determine what, if any, compensatory services might be necessary to make sure that those students aren't falling behind, who may not, for whatever reason, whatever individualized reason, may not be able to, meet all of their goals or access all of the services they need, through e-learning. We are ensuring that and going to ensure that they receive those services at some point if it's not immediately available. So those are kind of some of the big things that we're looking at. We no doubt are going to have other things pop up and continue to arise. But those are some of the things that we wanted to make sure that the board was aware of. So I'm happy to answer any questions about those or anything else from a law or policy aspect.
Questions?
Well, if you could maybe address a little bit about the local control component of the local Board of Education and potentially times when it can be overruled. For example, like does the governor actually have the ability to shut down our schools, or is it more of a health-related component? Or, I mean, what kind of the balance between local control versus, so to say, state takeover? Sure. Yeah, and that's something that's obviously relevant and prevalent. Our neighbors in Kansas have shut down for the year, as you know, and that was through the governor's office. As to the governor's authority, I think that they probably do, if they have the authority to do that, if it's based on a health concern or an emergency concern, which is no doubt what that would be based on. We have been following what Clay County has been recommending, and that's kind of how we've proceeded so far, and I think we'll continue to proceed. But yeah, I mean, I think if the state were to intervene and at some point say statewide schools you need to shut down, I think they would have the ability, the governor would have the ability to do that. Okay, thank you. Sure.
Any other comments, questions?
I guess I would have a question in terms of the students with IEPs. I mean, is that just up for grabs right now, or we're just waiting to see? Or, because I mean, I know there are hours of service that have to be given to them, and how are the nuts and bolts of that? Has anybody started talking about that, or where are we on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And Dr. Hilvitz, do you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So we have currently paraprofessionals and case managers and teachers who are working with those kids and making sure they're receiving as much support as they can provide them during this time. There will be students who need additional support when we get back, and that will be assessed when they return to determine exactly what that will look like and who will need to provide that. Kids who need additional OT or PT or speech language services might look a little bit different than kids who just need additional help with their daily learning. Is that helpful?
Okay, yeah, I'm curious how that's all going to work out, because that's a group that's really big on finding a lawyer and bringing people to task if they don't think things have been met the way they feel they should be met for their child.
I know we're early in, but we've been very responsive, and so far we have yet to have any complaints. So fingers crossed.
Okay, good to know.
Others? I was just curious if there are some decisions from DESE at this point that are hanging in the balance that will affect how we go forward just in the next few weeks.
Yeah, you know,
oh, go ahead, Tim.
No, you go ahead. This was Danny. You go ahead, Steve.
No, I was going to ask for some clarification. So, Dr. Clemens, I know you're more in touch with DESE.
Yeah, you know, I have that conference call with the advisory commission, or the commissioner's advisory tomorrow. I just hear that there's going to be a long conversation about budgets and what they think they can and can't do. But what's going on in our state right now is we have lots of different closure dates. They're not consistent with Kansas City. So we're going to come back on April 27th if Mayor Lucas lifts his shelter in place. But there's other folks. I think the governor has issued till April 9th. And so there's a lot of school districts that anticipate maybe going back sooner than us. And so with that, I think DESE's just trying to figure out what to do with all the different start stops. And so I think the best thing they've done at this point is not have us do our state assessment. I think the second best thing they were able to do was not hold us to the 1044 in terms of hours. I think that was fair. What I think you'll hear a push tomorrow is to have a statewide last day of school, because so many people are needing some clarification and closure. We are in a much different place than many school districts. Some folks are handing out packets of work to kids. Some are not doing anything. So this wide variety of opportunities that kids are getting in our state is various. And so we're probably in a little bit better situation than most. And so what that's doing is causing DESE a lot of, what do we do? We got some folks that are doing okay. We got some folks that aren't doing anything at all. How do we try to give the kids of Missouri the best opportunity for an education as possible? And I think that's what we're going to try to work through tomorrow. So on my Friday report, look for, I'll make sure I put what I find out from the commissioner and her team about how we proceed moving forward. I don't think there's a lot of folks that believe we will come back this year. It seems to be more and more as time goes on that folks believe that we probably won't be able to return to school this school year.
Well, another point that I think is interesting too is, again, the Missouri State Legislature, it's my understanding, has closed for the next 2 weeks also. So that really limits the remaining time that they'll have in session that could impact some of our impending laws.
All right. Other topics, Dr. Clemens?
Yeah, Madam President, we have two more. One was a question of who are we conferring with in this time? And we have a lot of different groups. We are meeting on a weekly phone call with Gary from Clay County Health Department That's the Northland superintendents, the ones that are in Clay County. And so he's mandated that we have 4 early childhood sites, or I'm sorry, 4 child care sites for essential personnel if needed. Currently, I'll tell you those sites are empty, but we do have 4 sites, one in north, south, east, and west, in case that would occur. And he's also staying close with us and ensuring that we are providing meals to our kids in this time of need. But it's been very complimentary of the way the Clay County school districts are handling this shutdown so far. I guess we all heard yesterday that there's 3 confirmed cases now in Clay County. That was the first ones that I'd heard announced. I haven't heard today's report to see if there's more. I am meeting with the commissioners, I've said a couple of times, tomorrow via the phone. We've been in contact with Mayor Lucas every week. He's been very responsive to us, not only as superintendents, but individuals, so that's going well. Not hearing much out of the governor's office. It seems like by the time we hear something from that particular office, Mayor Lucas is ahead of them, and we've already implemented what is going to happen here in Kansas City. Those are the major groups from which we're talking to. And again, the last one I'd say is the cooperating school districts. We're spending a lot of time as cooperating school districts just talking about what we can do to support all kids within our school districts here in Kansas City. And so that's a lot of folks. There's probably others we need to connect with, and as time goes on, I'm sure we will. The last and best one, Madam President, is probably for us to have a conversation around our bond election. And so many of our folks have been working hard today. I'm looking at Peggy right now to find out what we can and can't do. And so what I believe I understand at this point is the ballots have been printed, absentee votes have been casted, and that we put some money into this ballot as well as a lot of good hard work. And so it would actually cost us money if we did not want to run our June ballot, because they would have to reprint all the ballots that would go out for the election on June 2nd. And so that's the information Peggy was able to find out for us today. I know there's some questions around the work and some of those pieces that Jeff's gonna visit with us about in just a few minutes, but is there a conversation, or do we need to have a conversation around moving from April to June and our comfort with it and some of those pieces? I certainly wanted to ensure that we had that opportunity today.
So if you could clarify though, that the election scheduled in April has been postponed.
I'm sorry, yeah, I should have started there. Our April election has been postponed to, I believe, June 2nd, to June 2nd, which we had a lot of momentum going into it, and we've kind of put that on hold for the time being to address the needs of the school closure. And obviously that's given Jeff Vandal an opportunity and Chad Evans an opportunity to meet with McCown Gordon to see how that 2-month delay would impact summer work, next year's work, and we can certainly talk about that. So the question that was given to me from one of the board members was, do we still plan on running in June, on June 2nd? And so we tried to check into it to see, and if we were not to run it, we would have to pay for them to reprint their ballots. And they said they're not even sure that they would allow us not to run it due to absentee votes have been casted. And so I think we're in a situation where we're probably best apt to run it. At least the administrative recommendation would be to do that, but wanted to open it up for board discussion tonight, certainly.
I guess the comment I would offer would be twofold. First of all, if we didn't run an election in June, we've got 2 board members that are in some kind of a world of either limbo or super condition because they're past the end of their term. I'm assuming somebody, Steve or Desi or MSBA, has figured out that they can continue to serve with full rights and privileges. The second issue for me is we can't afford to put off our bond issue. We can't afford to put it off beyond April, truth be known. And I may be jumping the gun here, but I'm hoping Jeff will be able to clarify for us where we have pressure points and where we have challenges and what choices we might have as to what work we could do between now and June. But I think pushing the bond issue past June is just something that is not even hardly worth considering. I know we've had a stutter with what's going on right now, but I would also hope that we are proving to our patrons that we are using their resources well and delivering educational and other services to them in a way that is equal to or better than that being done by other districts in the area. That's the feedback I'm getting so far, is that the preparation and the exemplary work of the cabinet and the whole team is providing top level service. And I would think those would all improve our ability to be successful in the ballot box. So we don't have a choice about April 7th. Apparently there's a question about whether we have a choice about June 2nd. From my perspective, we have no choice about June 2nd. We have to do it.
I would echo Dr. Ward's comments. And by the way, it's not the first time I've been in limbo in my life, so wherever it stands, it stands. But one thing I might add, just thinking worst case scenarios, we should be encouraging our elected officials to allow mail-in ballots so that we don't have to back beyond June the 2nd, just in case. That I think that's an important issue, so we can be sure that we do have a June 2nd election. And I would certainly want to reaffirm Dr. Ward's comments about our district's reaction. And there are a couple of things I've liked about it. One is the leadership of our district has listened to the right people, that being the CDC and health experts, and responded to their information well. Two, that we are proactive. I really like the fact we didn't wait around for other people to tell us what to do, that we were talking cooperatively with the right folks and making decisions that were best for our kids, which is one of the statements in our strategic plan. And I really appreciate that on the part of the cabinet leadership. And to the teachers out there, thank you ahead of time for what you've started doing and what you're going to be doing. And I know it's going to take a lot out of you, and we appreciate you going above and beyond the call.
Others?
Well, I do
I
know
have
that. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a few questions. As we know, there are so many people in our community affected by our online learning, including our parents and our students and our businesses in our community. I was wondering, Danny, if you could talk a little bit about one group of students in our district, which is our high school seniors, and how they're affected by end of the year testing, advanced placement testing, international baccalaureate testing, prom, graduation. They're a unique group of students, and I was wondering if you could share a little bit about what some of your plans are and what's happening with our high school seniors this year.
Thanks for the question, Dixie. We just feel terrible for our high school seniors right now, as their whole year's been messed up. We've always kind of joked that they've had seniors today. This is taken it to a whole different level. But I think Dr. Sutton has working this pretty hard, and so he's in communication. Is it my earphone?
Does that help? No.
Getting a little feedback.
All right. So, anyways, Dr. Sutton
More
wants
people
to share
need to go to mute.
communication with the high school principals all day about graduations, proms, and then I think we sent the board a list of the assessments of what would happen there. Dr. Sutton, not there?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yes, so with regards to assessments, AP is coming out with an online assessment, so that's in the works right now. It's going to be about a 45-minute or so assessment that's going to be open-ended. So it will not be multiple choice for kids. And so we're awaiting the finalization of that. And then we'll certainly be in conversations with our kids and our teachers with regards to the students that want to continue to take that. One of the concerns is going to be just the lack of content that some of the kids are going to feel they have in order to be prepared. But AP has said that they're going to organize a test around content that students should have learned prior to leaving for about spring break around the country, so about mid-March. So we'll see. There's more to come on that. They're not finalized with the test yet, but we should hear something that first week in April with an update and a finalization of the release of that assessment. ACT, the earliest we can take an ACT assessment right now is going to be in June. There is a test date for our kids to take, and so we're going to work with ACT and our kids and see what level of interest, especially for some of our juniors. This would be the spring when we take the junior assessment, and obviously that's not going to be able to happen. The makeup date that they gave us is going to be a date that we're still out of session, and so that would not work for us. So June's going to be likely the earliest date that we can offer an ACT. For our students, IB has canceled all of their international assessments, so there will be none given for IB. Prom, and graduation are big topics right now amongst our high school principals. And as Dr. Clemens said, and I would echo, I feel terrible for our seniors right now. And those are two that we're going to be working through. Of course, we're going to be taking the guidance from the Clay County Health Department, but I'm working with high school principals, and we started brainstorming, plan A, plan B, and plan C today. And so we're working through all kinds of different ideas. We're going to be talking to our colleagues to the east and west and just throughout the state in terms of some possible plans. We've talked to some of our colleagues over on the Kansas side as they're a little bit ahead, as they've already declared that they're going to shut down, to try to find some possible solutions so that we can give our seniors the very best send-off considering the circumstances.
Okay, thank you. And then Dr. Clemens, I appreciate all the discussion about special education. I was wondering if you could just share, like, what's a typical day for a special education student, a regular classroom student, and our gifted students in the online learning environment? I can't hear you. You're muted, I believe, Dr. Clemens.
Okay.
There we go.
Phones have worn out. Chad, you want to go ahead and take that one? The typical day for a special ed student, a normal ed student, and a gifted student, is that the question?
Yeah, like how are we dealing with all of those different types of learners in our school district?
Yeah.
Yes, I'd be glad to. And so, of course, our normal learners, the way that, or all of our students, what our approach has been with e-learning right now has been very different than I think what a lot of other school districts have been able to do. And in some sense, it's because we are one-to-one. So very thankful that we do have one-to-one devices. And so what we've asked our teachers and our principals to do is to take our current instructional alignment guides or our curriculum guides, and in a sense, we're going to continue to use those to plan lessons and deliver lessons to students. So whatever day it is of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or A day, B day, whatever teachers those students have, or whatever content areas would be taught on that given day, those would be the lessons that would be delivered. Of course, they're a little bit different because it's e-learning and not directly face-to-face, but our teachers have done a really good job in using some of our tools to create as much kind of face-to-face or virtual interaction as possible. With regards to our special education students, a very large majority of our students are also receiving this instruction, and then our teachers are working with the IEP case managers to make the modifications as necessary for those students. And then for our gifted learners, just like we do today, when our gifted students, if it was their day to go to the NIC, our gifted resource teachers are providing lessons and work for those students that would be associated with some of the projects and units that they're working on currently at the Gifted Center. So they've really come together and rallied around, all of our kids and our teachers. And are providing resources and support to meet the needs of all of our learners the best we can right now.
Okay. And then last comment, again, just so many thank yous to the staff, to the parents out there, to the students, to the teachers, and everybody that's working so hard to make this work. The energy and enthusiasm on the social media is incredible, and just huge thank yous from me and probably the rest of the board as well.
Thank you.
Madam President, the last piece we'd like to share is have Jeff go through what the delay in our bond issue election has on construction projects that we proposed to this Board of Education just a month or two ago.
All right, thanks, Dr. Clemens. First of all, the first thing we're trying to do is understand some of these stay-at-home orders and the implications they have on specifically commercial construction activities. A lot of these orders that have come through mention specific types of construction, if they mention construction at all. For instance, Kansas City mentions infrastructure construction, public works construction, airport, residential. Very recently, Kansas City clarified that commercial building construction is included under infrastructure, which is good news because that affects our labor force. The city of North Kansas City has told us that they are going to mirror what Kansas City does. So they also recognize commercial construction as an essential activity, which is great news because we have the Norclay project going, and so that's going to continue on schedule. The South Campus, the demolition of that's going to continue there in North Kansas City. Clay County is one of those entities whose stay-at-home order is a little bit more vague, and they have not clarified if commercial construction is an essential activity or not. Gladstone, when we talked to them, they plan to mirror Clay County, and so we have asked them to specifically address that, and we haven't heard back from them yet. But that could have implications on some of the projects that we had planned if this stay-at-home order goes beyond 30 days. So back on these bond projects for this upcoming bond, many of them that are under design are going to be affected very minimally. For instance, the Staley addition, the Winnetonka Stadium project, Media Center, Oak Park entry and stadium project, those are under design. Those will stay. Those should not really be affected that much. The two projects that are going to be affected the most are the deferred maintenance projects and the early childhood center. The deferred maintenance projects, we are going to see how we can extract some pieces out of there. We're in the process of bidding that out, and since when the election got moved back, we've kind of halted that just a little bit because the project is currently bid. We wouldn't be able to fit that in to a summer if we got approval in June, and so we're trying to see what pieces of that we can extract and still get done. For instance, we can pull out some playground work and still get some playgrounds in. But some of the restroom remodels, the floor tile replacements, fire alarm upgrades, those are just going to take longer than we will have in the month of June and July and the first part of August. So those, unfortunately, a lot of those are going to push back to the next summer. While next summer we already have we already have a list of projects that we wanted to do next summer also. And so if we were to try to do all of this summer's deferred maintenance projects with next summer's deferred maintenance projects, that's going to be real problematic when it comes to like summer school, because it's going to be closing way too many of our schools. And that could also create an issue with the labor force out there too. So we're trying to look at some options out there that if we push this summer's deferred maintenance projects back to next summer, maybe we only do half of next summer's along with this summer's, and then we can sort of split next summer's and push the other half back to that next year out. So we're looking at some options out there so we don't try to do too many of those in one summer. We have a little bit of time to figure that out now. One of the projects in deferred maintenance that we are going to have to pull out and look at doing this summer is there was an ADA toilet room that's going to go into a goals classroom, and somehow we're going to have to pull that out and do that one early. And so I'll probably be taking that one for approval, board approval prior to the bond passing. So just kind of be aware of that. The other project, the Early Childhood Center, I want to talk a little bit about that one. So we, as you know, we're looking at opening that up in two phases. Phase one was going to bring all the Pleasant Valley kids over and open in January. And then the phase two would be in August. So with that election being pushed back 2 months, that January open date, if we just push that whole schedule back, that means we're opening phase one in March. That may or may not be a good thing. But if we were to try to keep that phase one opening in January, I think we need to be a little bit creative to see how that could happen. We did send out to bid an early phase package that included roofing and demolition. And we actually opened that this afternoon, had great coverage on both of those, and saw some pretty good pricing on that, frankly, which kind of surprised me in the midst of everything. We actually got some pretty good pricing on that. So I guess one thing we may want to talk about is, if we want to try to keep that January opening for phase one, that means going at risk for not only the work that opened today, but there probably needs to be another early package. Today we opened roofing and demolition. We would also need to look at least a plumbing and probably a steel package to go out, so we can get some underground plumbing. We can get the steel in place with the well, I won't get in the details, but some of those early packages, and we would probably be looking at going at risk in the neighborhood of $5-ish million ahead of the bond. Even if we do that, I just want to mention that gets us to that January opening date per plan. But as Dr. Ward mentioned earlier in the meeting, the future is really unknown right now. We don't know how that's really going to affect the supply chain. Are there factories that are going to be shutting down, and are materials going to be hard to get a hold of? Right now, we're not seeing any of that. In fact, I'm getting a lot of emails from suppliers saying they're still working on schedule. So indications are good, but I just kind of wanted to throw that out there, that a lot of that is still kind of unknown. Anyway, that's kind of where we are right now. We've had a lot of discussions with McCown Gordon on what this means, but it looks like the deferred maintenance and early childhood centers, those are the ones that we really probably need to have some conversations about.
And Matthew, would you join in and share with them a little bit about our cabinet conversation and the resources that you have that you could provide if the board was interested?
Yes, certainly. I think one of the things that we've already done is we've set up a lease-back financing for the purchase of the Price Chopper and Hobby Lobby. We have that $4.7 million that we've received from that financing that we could put towards this, which is something that we had also budgeted for. And so it's kind of an option to use. And with that financing structure, we are able to, once the bond passes, pay ourselves back for that amount. So that would be a source that we could use. We could also look at potentially refinancing that one more time to get additional funds, but that's something that I don't know that we could even get done in a short order amount of time that would be advantageous to us. But that's one of the things that we are constantly looking at is what are the different areas that we could utilize funds in order to help keep this project on time. I think, again, it also goes back to whether Gladstone allows us to do construction or not as far as timing. I think that's one of the things that Jeff mentioned. So we've got a lot of different things that we're dealing with as far as timing and funding, but we're working, like, as Jeff said, through cabinet with McCown Gordon, with our financing folks at Piper to just kind of get a couple different ways to possibly manage the timing of it all.
That's a lot of really great information, and also some things that we, again, with good advice, have really prepared ourselves for almost worst case scenarios, even in best situations. So I really appreciate the comments. Any other board comments on the election or the bond or anything else that you would like to share at this point on that topic specifically?
I guess the thought I would have is that indeed we have talked with our patrons, and Dr. Clemens has been the primary spokesman carrying this message. And we're getting an awful lot of feedback from them in a very positive nature. I think each of us is probably getting it in chatter in the community about the Early Childhood Center. And if indeed that's the one piece that we have the potential of basically moving the opening date from January to August, I think we ought to look very carefully at some of what Matt has suggested with that 4.7 against 5.5, with using maybe a couple of nickels out of the fund balance if we had to. I think it behooves us to ask the staff to continue to plan for getting started on that project in the now time frame, not the June 3rd time frame. And there are obviously, we're getting into an area where there's even more moving parts than there are in most of the things we've already discussed. As far as the uncertainty of the workforce, uncertainty of the supply chain, uncertainty of the funding, uncertainty, you can just keep on going down. But I'm inclined to take that piece and work forward with getting the Early Childhood Center ready to go. Now, we will be getting together in another 2 weeks. There will be another 2 weeks of facts available to us before we have to make what I would assume would be a final decision, but we're basically right up on April 7th right now anyway. So My bias would be for the board to go at risk and proceed on the early childhood center, especially since we have a financing source that, albeit needing to be repaid, but that we can survive with if we're not placed in the position we expect to be in on June 3rd.
Others?
Well, I would
I would
say we made this commitment, and, you know, bond or not, I mean, it's like the commitment was pretty much out there when we bought that property, that that's what we were going to do with it, one way or the other. So I think we're pretty committed to it. I think people are anticipating, you know, moving into this area and sending their children there, and I think we need to go ahead with it.
Well, again, it's my understanding that the election, more than anything else, it's been, you know, rescheduled from April the 7th to June the 2nd. So in many aspects, everything stays in place. It's just the date has been moved out. My hope, again, is to echo everything that I have just heard, but also in addition to that, the one piece of hope that is out there is maybe that this would be a super good time for us to issue bonds, because in order to get the economy rebooted, I expect interest rates to fall, and it'd probably be a very good time for us to issue debt. And so when we do take this issue to the voters, it will be a good value in the fact that this is a good time to issue those bonds and pay them back over a 20-year period of time.
I concur. I think that the voters are already waiting in anticipation. Some of our patrons are for usage of the facility, and it's really a need in our community, as well as the opportunity financially to do it. And the fact that it's a zero increase to the taxpayers is just a vital piece, that we're able to do that without a change. So.
Yeah. And my only caution,
I guess,
oh yeah, on almost everything that we have discussed tonight. I mean, information is changing by the minute as we go forward. And obviously we're making the best decisions with the information that we have available at this point in time, but realizing that over the next day, week, month, that there will be additional information that comes out that does impact some of our decisions. But at this point in time, what we're trying not to do is set ourselves into a panic mode. We're trying to ride it out, stay calm, stay steady, and proceed with our plans.
I guess the only other thing I would add would be going back and footnoting the comment, I think it was T made earlier, that maybe we ought to ask Ms. Henderson to do some work with our friends in the legislature and see what might be viable in the way of getting mail-in ballots, because it certainly would be where we would get into a huge bind would be if June turned into August, and then we're in a real mess. And
True.
So I would think that it'd be worth pursuing. We may find out that there's a stone wall in our way, but I think it's worth at least some exploration.
I agree, absolutely.
I concur on the preschool thing.
Yeah.
And then also with the legislature on with funding, which will be evolving. So, all right. Any other comments, questions? We're running into 7:10. Were there other topics that the board had presented to you, Dr. Clemens, for consideration or discussion tonight?
I think that was the last one. I appreciate the opportunity for our staff to participate with the board and share what we know. And I think I've heard it a couple of times recently by Mr. Harrell that every day is a new story for us, and we'll keep you informed the best we can with what changes within our operations, and hopefully provide you the best information possible.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There, regarding future meetings, we do have our next meeting scheduled for April 13th because we will still be shelter in place at that point. I imagine that we will be doing a live streaming again, and there was a request that we keep it at the 5:30 time rather than the previously discussed 7 o'clock. How does the board feel about that?
I like that.
That's
Fine.
fine by
Earlier?
me.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
We need to note that's a Monday, correct, rather than Tuesday.
It's
Yeah.
on Monday.
Right. So I mean, that's why
Still.
my point is it's a Monday versus a Tuesday. We typically meet on Tuesdays. Just keep everybody informed that our next
Is
meeting
that still?
will be on a Monday.
Yes,
Okay.
that's.
Thank
one
you for
change.
the reminder.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. And then most of the other meetings that we've had canceled over time, and we'll be just waiting until after the after school's back in session, we see how things go, which is in progress. I think, Peggy, was there any other calendar items of concern?
No, I don't believe so. We talked about moving the June meeting back to the 23rd. But now that the June election is June 2nd, we'll have to have that reorganization meeting in there.
So that will be calendared as we go forward. Okay. At this point,
Madam President,
yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I see us trending toward adjournment here. And
Well,
I just
have
had
a
an
few words
idea.
I'd like to share, but what would do you have some things you'd want to say?
I guess one of the things I'm wondering if there would be any value and merit to the board passing a resolution thanking everybody for the extraordinary efforts they're going to, and formally go on record saying we appreciate it, and then asking the cabinet to get it distributed so that all of the 3,600 people who have stepped up understand that the board cares and appreciates what they're doing.
I second Dr. Ward's motion.
All right.
I agree
All
as
those-
well.
Yes.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Opposed? All right. I'll work on a resolution that includes some language expressing appreciation. Definitely. Good suggestion. Anything else? I just want to specifically thank everyone for joining tonight, being flexible and adaptable to this setting. And I think it worked pretty well. And all of those listening live, we also appreciate you being with us as well. I found a very nice quote by Winston Churchill that I'd like to share with you because I think it's very apropos. There comes a special moment in everyone's life, a moment for which that person was born. That special opportunity when he seizes it and will fulfill his mission, a mission for which he is uniquely qualified. In that moment, he finds greatness. It is his finest hour. I think in the past few weeks, the district has been called to live fully into our mission to be champion to kids. The virus has afforded all of us a special opportunity. Students, staff, teachers, parents, administrators, community, and board to all rise up to the moment and to seize it with enthusiasm, creativity, and care for one another. They have certainly exemplified that. They have found the greatness within and they are sharing it with others. On behalf of the board, I would like to thank everyone for your handiwork and to ensure that our students are learning, that they are fed, that they are emotionally cared for, and that every child's unique needs are being met. Our school communities are exhibiting greatness every day as we see through frequent communications. Your posts and everyone's willingness to do what it takes is very commendable. Dr. Clemens continues to say, we've got this. I believe that we do. And this, my friends, will become one of North Kansas City Schools' finest hours, I do believe. At this time, I just thank Dr. Cummings and the entire cabinet for all of their hard work in holding us steady. It's been an amazingly busy but very, very smooth transition into this new normal, and we appreciate you tremendously and everyone tremendously. Be kind to everyone, be safe, be healthy. And at this point, our board meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.